Hello, this video will discuss the purchasing of Microsoft licensing for a K through 12 school. I'm only going to use my experience, so it's not going to help everyone, but we'll get right down to it. So this is for a pre-K through 8th grade school with one class per grade level, approximately 20 kids per class. That gives you about 180 kids in the K through 12 school. I've worked with several small schools, so this and most of my future videos will be information based upon that. A lot of times the pricing that I have for licensing will apply to you on a per user basis, but sometimes the pricing I pay is a site license, and you're going to pay the whole thing the same price that I pay even if you have more kids. So for Microsoft, you really have two choices. You can do the old traditional style of a volume license on the site, and technically volume licensing is called an overlay. So you're supposed to purchase your computers with Microsoft Windows 10 Pro or higher, and then this is an overlay that you can use for imaging, licensing for the overlays. The problem is that a lot of schools have older machines and then you upgrade them to the SSD, and it's not even worth it to try to image off all those old computers, and they're all slow and full of other programs and things like that anyway, so you're just better off to make a new one anyway, and it might not have even been Windows 10 or Windows 10 Pro. It might be an older or lesser version. So a lot of people just use it pretty liberally, right? And it's good because the price is reasonable. So for my schools, you have to claim how many full-time adults are working there. You're not paying by the kid. So we're paying something like $1,100 per year for 20 full-time staff. So those are all the teachers from pre-K through grade 8. That's something like 15 staff, a few office members, and maybe all the fine arts teachers together total another two people. So it really doesn't matter how many kids, it matters how many adults are there. So that pricing is great, and it works fine. That doesn't include any of your hardware or any additional software. The servers are super cheap to add on. I mean, if you add on 10 servers, it's something like 80 bucks extra or something like that. Even with the modern CAL licensing. That CAL licensing is confusing, but it's really cheap. It ends up being like $5 or $6 or $8 per server, unless you have some massive server with a bunch of cores to it. But I mean, just a regular 4-core or 8-core server might cost you 10 bucks, 5 bucks, 10 bucks a year with volume licensing. The new way they want you to do, and I know this because we have these district-wide meetings with people trying to sell us things, and sometimes we meet with I want to call them the hipsters from the local mall. They're like Microsoft employees, and they work in the Microsoft store, and has a very similar feel and vibe to the Apple store. They all wear blue jeans, and some wear polo shirts, some wear t-shirts, and they're trying to get you to to switch from the traditional volume licensing agreement to the more modern agreement, and it has more cloud-based application. I could work on images from home. In theory, it's going to be easier to do some imaging, a lot easier possibly. It's going to match up with newer apps and APIs, and it's going to flow better. So there are all these nice promises, and they tell you you'll save money. So all that sounds great, and then they always throw out this, $3 or $5. I'm really not sure about this price. It might have been $2.50. It might have been $5. Whatever it is, it's per month per user. I believe that's going to be just for those 20 adults, but this might have even been for the kids. This is turning out to be a terrible video because I don't have all the pricing. But whatever it is, it ends up being tremendously more money long term. It really does. So you need this, and then you need something else, you need to know the office.com. So I'm talking about Microsoft.com strictly for imaging and for your licensing for Windows 10. And then in addition to that, you could do your paid Office subscription, and you got to pay for your server cores separately and all this other stuff. And when they catch you with this by the month, by the user, it's rough. But that's where they're moving towards. That would allow you to hire a lesser experienced employee to be able to manage with that, possibly. But I just feel like the old traditional way is still king, and I feel like it's a very reasonable price. I mean, you'd pay practically this much money. This includes the Office 2016 suite. Of course, with 2019, they want you to like spin up your own server and host it yourself, which is kind of silly. But it does include the 2016 suite, and of course, you can get the A1 licensing for Office for free, or you can just use Google or whatever else you're using. So at this point for this year, I'm still recommending sticking with the old school traditional, and for schools I really recommend simplicity, using as few GPOs as possible, as few restrictions as possible, and just keeps things simple and smooth and easy to manage. And I mean, for the most part, if everybody's a standard user, they can't get in any actual trouble, can they? I mean, I've never had a single problem with anybody with anything because they can't. Right? They can't download any virus. They can't get those things on the network. So that is my experience. I will try to get the more exact pricing someday. Maybe if I have to meet with those hipsters again, I'll ask them more directly. But once I start asking the hard questions, they just turn away from me and they go and they work some softer wood, and get their money. So that's my recommendation.